Hello and welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're not just looking at a topic. We are looking at the literal landscape of human existence.
That's a big way to put it.
Well, it's true. We are tackling the beast that is AP Human Geography Unit 6.
Right. Cities and urban land use patterns and processes.
Yeah, that one. It is a beast.
It really is. And honestly, it's one of the most visible units. You can walk outside and see Unit 6 happening in real time.
Yeah.
It's the street you live on. It's the traffic you sit in. The skyline you see in the distance.
That's the thing, right? It's easy to look at this unit and think, okay, memorizing maps of downtown, got it. But looking at the source material we have today, this is massive.
Extreme.
We're talking about 12 to 17% of the entire AP exam.
Yeah, that is a huge chunk of the score.
It's nearly a fifth of your score riding on whether you understand why a city looks the way it does.
And the trap that you see a lot of people fall into is thinking it's just vocabulary.
Like flashcards.
Exactly. You memorize CBD or suburb and think you're done.
Yeah.
But the exam doesn't care if you just know the definition.
Right.
It cares if you can look at a data set of housing prices in, say, Rio de Janeiro versus Chicago and explain why they are different.
The application.
Exactly. Application over memorization.
So our mission today, for you listening, we want to be the ultimate shortcut to that application. We want to connect the spatial patterns, like where things are, to the economic and social engines.
The why they are there.
Right. We're going to deconstruct the city today.
We need to analyze how they form, how they're structured internally.
And the invisible infrastructure that keeps them running.
Right. And the massive, sometimes catastrophic challenges they face today.
It's a lot of ground to cover.
Yeah.
So we've organized this deep dive into a 4-part journey to keep us on the rails.
Good idea.
Yeah.
So part 1 is the big picture. Global origins.
Why is Tokyo where it is?
Right. Why is London where it is? Then part 2, we go inside the city walls for internal structure.
That's the models, the rings, the wedges.
The famous geometry of geography.
I like that.
And part 3 is the nuts and bolts. Infrastructure and data. How do planners actually make decisions?
And finally, part 4, challenges and sustainability. What happens when the system breaks?
And how do we fix it?
All right, let's not waste any time. Let's jump straight into segment 1, global origins, distribution, and influence.
Let's do it.
So the fundamental question to start us off, why is a city where it is?
Right.
If you look at a map of the world, cities aren't scattered like confetti. They are clustered. It's not random.
It is definitely not random.
Yeah,
In geography, we have 2 concepts that act as the DNA of a city's location.
Site and situation.
Yes, site and situation. You cannot mix these up.
Break down site for us first.
So site is the absolute location. It is the physical reality of the place.
The dirt.
The dirt. If you were an early settler standing on a hill 500 years ago, what were you looking at?
Right, like is there water?
Exactly. The soil, the climate, water availability, defensible terrain.
So you're looking for survival factors.
Precisely. Take San Francisco. Why is it there?
Not because of tech companies.
No, they came much later.
Yeah.
It's there because of the site. It's a peninsula protecting a massive natural harbor.
Right.
That is a physical characteristic. Or look at Paris. It started on an island in the middle of the Seine River.
Oh, for defense.
Exactly. That's a site factor. It was easy to protect from invaders.
Okay, so site is the dirt and water. What about situation?
Situation is relative. It's not about what is at the place, but what the place is connected to.
So interaction.
It's all about interaction.
So a city could have a terrible physical site. Maybe it's in a swamp. But if the situation is good, it thrives.
Look at New Orleans.
Oh, perfect example.
The site is arguably terrible. It's below sea level, prone to hurricanes, surrounded by swamp. It is a nightmare to build on.
What? The situation.
Unbeatable. It is the gateway to the Mississippi River, draining the entire North American interior. That connectivity made it essential.
It connects the heartland to the ocean.
Right. Think about the Silk Road, a city like Samarkand in Uzbekistan.
Okay.
Its physical site was fine, but its situation was golden. It was the strategic waypoint between China and Europe.
But then trade shifted to the ocean.
And when that happened, Samarkand's situation declined, and the city shrank.
That's a key takeaway for the exam, isn't it? Site is usually static.
Yeah, the mountain doesn't move.
Right. But situation creates change.
That's the golden rule. Site factors often determine where a settlement starts, but situation factors, highways, trade agreements, internet cables, they determine how it grows.
But cities aren't just passive dots on a map waiting for a trade caravan. There are engines driving this growth.
Oh, definitely.
We're seeing urbanization at a scale in human history that is actually kind of terrifying.
It's totally unprecedented. And based on our source material, we can categorize the drivers of this modern explosion into a few buckets.
Transportation, communication, migration, economics, and government.
Let's drill into transportation first, because that seems to shape the literal footprint of the city.
We talk about Borchards' 8-box in geography sometimes, this idea that the technology of the day dictates the shape of the city.
It's crucial. Start with the walking city. Before engines, a city could only be about 2 miles wide because people had to literally walk to work.
So they were dense.
Very dense, cramped, and mixed.
Then you get streetcars.
And the city becomes a star shape. You could live further out along the rail line, but you still had to walk to the station.
But then,
The automobile.
the game changer.
The car annihilated distance. It allowed for the filling in of the gaps between the rail lines. It created the suburb.
Because you weren't tethered to a track anymore.
Exactly. It allowed the city to sprawl horizontally,
And now we have highways.
which supercharged that sprawl.
Yeah.
It enabled people to live 30, 40 miles away from their jobs. This transportation evolution is basically the history of the American landscape.
But there's another driver that seems almost counterintuitive to me. Communication. Well, you'd think that with Zoom and the internet, we wouldn't need cities at all. We could all just live in cabins.
Right, we call that time-space compression. The world feels smaller.
Yeah.
But paradoxically, it has made cities more important as command centers.
Really?
Think about it. You can run a global empire from a single skyscraper in Manhattan because of fiber optics. That concentration of connectivity attracts more businesses, which attracts more people.
And so it creates a node.
Exactly. Cities become nodal entities in a global network.
Which brings us to the human element. Migration. The rural to urban shift.
This is the biggest demographic story of the last century.
I mean, in the Industrial Revolution, this happened in the UK and the US, right?
Yeah, farmers moved to Manchester or Chicago for factory jobs. But now, that story has shifted to the periphery and semi-periphery.
Places like India, China, Nigeria.
Yes. The push factors in rural areas, like mechanization of farming or just lack of opportunity, they're driving millions of people into cities like Lagos, Dhaka, and Mumbai.
And that links directly to the economic driver. It used to be industrialization. Factories need bodies.
Right.
But now in the developed world, it's the service and tech sectors.
Exactly. And don't forget the government driver.
Policies.
Policies matter. If a government creates a special economic zone with low taxes, a city will literally sprout out of the ground there.
Or if they build a high-speed rail line.
The stops along that line will urbanize instantly.
So we have these massive populations aggregating, but we need to be precise with our vocabulary here for the exam.
Yes.
The source material highlights 3 categories that always get confused: megacities, metacities, and world cities.
Let's clear this up because the AP exam loves to trick you here.
Yeah,
Megacities and metacities are defined strictly by numbers.
it's a head count.
Just a head count. A megacity has over 10 million people.
Think Paris, Rio, New York City.
And a
A
metacity,
monster.
over 20 million people. Tokyo is the classic example. Delhi, Shanghai.
Mhm.
These are urban agglomerations that are sprawling over massive, massive territories.
Okay, so if I have 20 million people, I'm a metacity. But am I a world city?
Not necessarily.
Mm.
A world city, which is also called a global city, is defined by influence, not population.
It's about power.
Yes. Give me the contrast. Look at a city like Dhaka in Bangladesh. It is huge. It's a megacity approaching metacity status.
Right.
But does it control the global stock market?
Yeah.
Does it dictate global fashion trends?
Not really.
Not really. Now contrast that with Zurich, Switzerland.
Zurich is tiny.
It's very small, less than 500,000 people in the city proper, but it is a banking powerhouse. It has more global influence per capita than almost anywhere else.
Because of the banks.
Exactly. However, the top tier, the alpha world cities, are places like London, New York, and Tokyo.
The command and control centers.
That's the phrase. They house the stock exchanges, the multinational headquarters, the major media conglomerates. If Wall Street crashes, the world economy crashes.
But if the Dhaka Stock Exchange crashes...
It's a regional issue. That is the fundamental difference.
Got it. Power versus population. Now let's look at the shape of these places. As they sprawl out, we aren't just seeing city and suburb anymore.
No, it's way more complex.
We're seeing weird new formations.
We are. The old binary is totally dead. We have edge cities now.
Which sounds like a sci-fi term?
Right. It was coined by Joel Garreau. An edge city is a hub that pops up on the outskirts of a major city, usually at the intersection of two major highways.
Okay.
But here is the key defining feature. It has more jobs than bedrooms.
Wait, so people commute to it from other suburbs?
Yes, it has office parks, huge shopping malls, hotels. Tyson's Corner outside of Washington, D.C. is the textbook example.
What was it before?
It used to just be a gas station, literally.
Yeah.
Now it has more office space than downtown Miami.
That's insane. And then we have boom burbs.
A boom burb is a suburb that basically grew up. It has over 100,000 residents.
So it's big.
It's very big. But it's not a city in the traditional sense. It doesn't have a dense downtown with skyscrapers or a grid.
So what does it look like?
It's essentially a massive, massive collection of subdivisions and strip malls. Think Irving, Texas, or Henderson, Nevada.
And further out, where the rich people go to hide.
The exurbs. These are prosperous areas way beyond the suburbs.
They want land.
They want a lot of land. They want to own a horse. But they're still connected to the city economy, usually via the internet or, a really long commute.
It's wealth fleeing the density.
Exactly.
Okay, we've covered the what and where. Now let's get a little technical. The math of cities.
The distribution models.
Yes. Planners and geographers love to find patterns in chaos. The source material lists 4 theories here that you absolutely need to grasp for the exam.
Rank size rule, primate city rule, gravity model, and central place theory.
Let's start with rank size. This is the one that always feels too perfect to be true.
It is a bit idealized, yeah. But it holds up in some developed nations like Germany or loosely in the U.S.
Yeah.
The rule states that the nth largest city is 1 over under the size of the largest city.
Okay, walk me through the math on that. Keep it simple.
Sure. Let's say your largest city has 12 million people.
Okay, 12 million.
The second largest city should be 1/2 that size, so 6 million.
Got it.
The third largest should be 1/3 the size, 4 million.
And the 4th largest.
1/4, 3 million.
Okay, so it steps down predictably. What does it actually imply if a country follows this rule?
It implies health. It suggests that wealth and services are distributed somewhat evenly throughout the whole country.
Because you don't have to live in the capital to get a good job.
Exactly. You don't have to go to the capital for good healthcare or universities. There are regional hubs that can support you.
Now flip the coin, the primate city rule.
This is when the largest city is just disproportionately huge.
Like how huge?
More than twice the size of the next largest city.
Mm.
And it doesn't just dominate in population, it dominates the country, economically, politically, culturally.
Give me an example. Mexico City.
Perfect example. Mexico City is absolutely massive.
Mm.
The next biggest cities, like Guadalajara and Monterrey, are just a fraction of its size. Or look at Paris. Or London.
What does that tell us about those countries?
It often indicates uneven development. It's very common in post-colonial nations or highly centralized states.
Why post-colonial?
Because the colonial powers would build up one major port or administrative center, the primate city, to extract resources, and they'd completely neglect the rest of the country.
So if you live in the rural areas of a primate city country, you are often cut off from essential services.
Right. You have to travel all the way to the great city for everything.
It's a very lopsided system.
Very.
Next up, the gravity model, which sounds like physics.
It is entirely stolen from physics. From Newton.
Seriously.
Yeah. Newton said big objects attract each other and close objects attract each other. Geography says the exact same thing about cities.
So the interaction between two places is determined by the size of their populations and the distance between them. So New York and Los Angeles, they are very far apart.
But their populations are massive, so their gravitational pull, meaning the trade, the flights, the culture, is huge. They interact constantly, despite the distance.
But a small town in Ohio interacts with the small town next to it.
Yes, because the distance is so short. But that small town in Ohio has almost zero interaction with a small town in France.
Low mass, high distance.
I got it.
Finally, the one with the hexagons. Central place theory. Walter Kristaller.
This one is huge. Kristaller was asking, why are towns spaced the way they are? And he realized it depends on 2 economic concepts. Threshold and range.
Define them.
Threshold is the minimum number of people needed to keep a business alive.
Okay, so a coffee shop has a low threshold.
Right. It needs maybe a couple thousand people nearby to stay profitable, but a specialized cancer research center.
Very high threshold.
Yes. It needs millions of people in its catchment area to function.
And range.
Range is how far you are actually willing to travel for that service.
For a coffee, I won't drive more than 10 minutes.
That's a short range. For the cancer treatment, You might fly across the country. That's a long range.
So this creates a hierarchy of settlements.
Yes. You have thousands of small hamlets selling low-range goods like bread and milk.
And they're close together.
Exactly. Then you have fewer towns selling medium-range goods like cars and furniture, and they are further apart.
And finally, you have very few cities selling high-range goods like specialized surgery or professional sports stadiums.
And they are spaced very far apart.
And when you map this all out to avoid gaps or overlaps in service areas, you get hexagons.
Exactly. Circles leave gaps. Squares are weird with radial distance. Hexagons fit perfectly like a honeycomb.
But, and we really have to ask this, does this theory from the 1930s still work today?
Well, the internet disrupts it heavily. Range doesn't mean driving anymore. It means shipping cost.
Right. I can get a high-order good, like a specialized electronic part delivered to a rural farmhouse.
The Amazon delivery truck has definitely messed up Chris Dollar's hexagons. But the basic hierarchy of cities, that big cities have more specialized services, still exists.
All right, that wraps segment 1. We know where cities are and the math of why they grow. Now, let's zoom in.
Let's do it.
Let's look at the map of a single city. Segment 2. Internal structure and spatial organization.
This is where we get into the nitty-gritty of urban planning. And before we look at any of the models, we have to understand the economic law that dictates them.
Bid-rent theory.
Yes, bid-rent theory.
This is kind of the physics of land use, right?
It's simple supply and demand applied to dirt. Everyone wants to be in the central business district or CBD.
Because that's where the customers and the transit hubs are.
Exactly. High demand means high price,
So land in the CBD is astronomically expensive.
which forces you to build up. Skyscrapers are an economic necessity, not just an aesthetic choice. You literally need to stack floor space to pay for the footprint of the land.
And as you move away from the CBD,
The bid, meaning the price people are willing to pay, drops. The rent goes down.
so just outside the CBD, you might have factories or warehouses.
Right, because they need more space, but they can't pay skyscraper prices. Further out, you get apartments. And furthest out, where land is cheap, you get the suburbs.
Because you can afford a half-acre lawn when the land costs peanuts compared to downtown.
Exactly. Bid rent explains why the city looks like a cone of density. Tall in the middle, flat on the edges.
So using that logic, geographers built models to describe North American cities, and we can basically walk through history with these models, right?
It really is a timeline. We start in the 1920s with the Burgess concentric zone model.
Okay, visualize this for us.
Imagine a target, a bullseye. The CBD is the center.
Wings.
5 rings. CBD in the center. Then right outside that is the zone of transition.
This is key for the exam right now.
Extremely key. The zone of transition is where the factories were mixed with low-income housing.
Why there? Why put the housing right next to the smoke?
Because in the 1920s, poor people didn't have cars. They had to walk to the factories. So the inner city became associated with industry and poverty.
And the rich.
They lived in the outer ring, the commuter zone. They could afford the train ticket or the early automobile to commute in.
Then comes the 1930s, the Hoyt sector model.
Hoyt said, wait, cities don't grow in perfect rings?
Which makes sense. Nature isn't perfect circles.
Right. They grow along rail lines and highways. So he drew wedges, like slices of a pie coming out of the center.
So if there is a train line going north, industry will build along that track, creating an industrial wedge.
You got it. And the wealthy, they will choose the pretty wedge, maybe along the lakefront or up on a hill, upwind from the industrial smoke.
And once that high-class sector is established, it stays there.
It tends to, yes.
Then we hit the 1940s. Harris and Ullman, the multiple nuclei model.
Now the car is really taking over. They argued that a city doesn't have just one heart anymore. It has multiple nuclei.
Plural of nucleus.
Right. Sure, there's still a CBD, but maybe there's a second hub around the university, a third hub near the airport, a fourth hub in the medical center.
It's getting messy.
It reflects the real complexity of the modern city. Incompatible land uses repel each other, so you won't find a mansion next to a steel mill, but compatible ones attract.
Like hotels clustering near the airport.
Exactly.
And finally, the modern one, the galactic city model, also called the peripheral model.
This is the post-industrial reality. The city has totally turned inside out. We have a beltway, a ring road highway around the city.
Okay.
And along that highway, we have those edge cities we talked about earlier.
So the downtown is just one node among many. People live in the suburbs and work in the suburbs.
Precisely. It's totally decentralized.
Now, here is where the AP exam likes to throw a curveball. those are North American models. If you apply them to Paris or Rio, you will fail the FRQ.
Oh, absolutely.
We need to talk about the global models.
This is crucial. American cities are fairly unique because we historically hollowed out our centers. The rich moved away. In the rest of the world, the center is the place to be.
Let's start with the Latin American city model, the Griffin-Ford model.
Visually, this looks like a wheel with a massive spoke. You have the CBD in the center, but then you have the spine.
The spine.
It's a grand commercial boulevard extending out from the center. Think of the Paseo de la Reforma in Mexico City. It's lined with high-end shops, theaters, and offices.
And who lives next to the spine?
The elite, the rich. In the Latin American model, the wealthy live in a cone radiating out from the center along that spine. They want access to the amenities.
So where are the poor?
On the periphery, the outskirts. It is the exact opposite of the historical U.S. model. These outer rings are called the disamenities zones.
The favelas.
The barrios. Yes, these are often squatter settlements built on dangerous terrain. Steep hillsides or floodplains.
They lack services.
No water, no power.
Yeah.
They might be controlled by gangs, and they are physically disconnected from the city center.
So just to summarize for the notes, U.S. historically equals rich in suburbs, poor in center. Latin America equals rich in center and spine, poor in suburbs.
That is the critical comparison you need to make.
What about the Southeast Asian model, the McGee model?
This one is interesting because there is no formal Western-style CBD. The whole city focuses on the port zone.
Because these are export economies.
Exactly. The colonial history created cities designed to extract and ship goods out. So the port is the heart. You have a government zone, an alien commercial zone, often Chinese merchants, and mixed land use radiating out.
And on the very edge, something called market gardening.
Right. Agriculture inside or just on the city limits?
Supplying fresh food to the market.
Exactly.
And finally, the sub-Saharan African model, the de Blage model.
This one reflects the colonial imprint most starkly. It actually has 3 CBDs.
3 separate downtowns.
Yes. You have the colonial CBD grid streets, multi-story buildings, administrative functions.
Built by the European.
Right. Then you have the traditional CBD single-story, chaotic, where the locals did commerce before and during colonization. And finally, you have the market zone.
Which is open-air stalls, informal economy.
Exactly.
That tells the history of the region in a single map.
It really does. And structurally, around those centers, you see strong ethnic neighborhoods, tribal segregation, and then an outer ring of squatter settlements due to that rapid rural-to-urban migration we talked about earlier.
So we have these layouts, but layouts aren't static. We have to talk about density and how we manage it, because we are seeing a shift back to the city in the U.S. now.
We are. It's called infilling.
Define that.
For decades, we sprawled out, we built over farmland. Infilling is the opposite. It's finding underused land inside the city limits, an old parking lot, a vacant factory, and building on it.
Increasing the density.
Right. Instead of building a subdivision 20 miles away, you build a condo building downtown. It uses the existing infrastructure much more efficiently.
Which is the perfect segue to segment 3, urban operations, infrastructure, and governance.
Yeah, the invisible forces.
Exactly. We keep saying infrastructure, but let's broaden that definition for the exam.
It is the backbone of civilization.
Yeah.
It's not just asphalt and bridges.
Right.
It's water systems, sewage, energy grids, fiber optic cables, schools, hospitals, waste management. It is everything that makes high-density living possible without us all dying of cholera.
And it has a massive economic impact.
It's a multiplier. Infrastructure attracts business. Amazon isn't going to build a massive fulfillment center where there are no roads or stable power grids.
So high-quality infrastructure creates a positive feedback loop. Better roads bring business, business brings tax revenue, revenue fixes the roads.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But the flip side is the stagnation loop.
To death spiral.
Yeah. If infrastructure crumbles, business leaves.
Mm-hmm.
The tax base evaporates. The infrastructure gets worse because you can't pay to fix it. It's very hard to stop that slide once it starts.
And this brings us to the politics of infrastructure because, pipes aren't political, but where you put them definitely is.
This is a critical thinking point for the FRQs. Infrastructure is rarely distributed equally across the city. Look at the digital divide.
Who gets high-speed fiber internet?
Usually the wealthy neighborhoods get it first. The poorer neighborhoods get it last, or maybe not at all.
Which obviously limits their educational and economic opportunities.
Exactly. Or look at the Flint water crisis in Michigan. The source material points to this.
Yeah, let's look at that objectively.
That wasn't just a technical failure of pipes, it was a governance failure. A political decision was made to switch water sources to save money, and it ignored the risks to a predominantly lower-income minority population.
It perfectly illustrates that infrastructure decisions can be matters of life and health.
And on a global scale, this explains the divide between the core and the periphery countries. Core countries have the grid to attract investment. Periphery countries struggle to fund the basic infrastructure, which literally keeps them in the periphery. It's a trap.
So if you are a city planner, how do you make these decisions? You don't just guess where to put a pipe. You use data.
The Planner's Toolkit. We generally have two buckets of data we use, quantitative and qualitative.
I call them the mathy and the feely.
I like that. Quantitative is the hard numbers, the mathy stuff, the census.
Let's pause on the census. In the U.S., we break this down geographically.
Since scale matters huge here for the exam. You have the census tract, roughly 4,000 to 12,000 people. Then smaller is the block group. Then the smallest is the block.
Planners use this to see trends, right?
Yes. Where is the population aging? Where are incomes dropping? Where is the traffic congestion highest?
That's the objective stuff. But you can't run a city on spreadsheets alone.
No, you absolutely can't. You need qualitative data. That's the feely stuff.
Interviews, narratives, field observations.
Surveys asking, how safe do you feel walking at night?
Why is this qualitative side so necessary?
Because numbers can lie, or at least they can hide the human truth.
Give me an example of a conflict between the two, where the math and the feelings clash.
Okay, imagine a quantitative study shows a neighborhood has high unemployment. The logical, math-based solution is, rezone this land for a large industrial factory. It brings jobs.
Solves the problem on paper.
But if you go do the qualitative work, if you actually talk to the grandmothers on the front porches, they might say, we don't want a factory here. We are terrified of the truck traffic and the air pollution. We want a community center and a grocery store.
So the numbers say economic growth, but the people say quality of life.
Exactly. A bad planner ignores the people and builds the factory anyway, leading to protests and resentment. A good planner synthesizes both data sets. They find a way to bring jobs that actually fits the community narrative.
Data isn't just numbers, it's stories.
Right.
Okay, we are heading into the final stretch, segment 4, urban challenges and sustainable futures.
This is the so what section of the unit. We know how cities are built, but right now they are facing massive existential threats.
Let's start with the social challenges. Specifically, the legacy of segregation in the U.S. We have to talk about redlining.
This is a term every single student must know. In the 1930s, the government aimed to stabilize the housing market. They created maps to grade neighborhoods on the risk for giving out bank loans.
And how did they grade them?
Explicitly by race. White neighborhoods were graded green, meaning safe for loans. Black or immigrant neighborhoods were outlined in red ink, meaning hazardous.
Hence, redlining.
If you lived in a red zone, banks would simply refuse to give you a mortgage. You couldn't buy a home. You couldn't even get a loan to fix your roof.
So while white families in the suburbs were building wealth through homeownership, which, let's be honest, is the main way Americans build generational wealth, Black families were completely locked out.
It created a wealth gap that is still massive today, and it led to severe physical decay of the cities. If no one can borrow money to fix buildings, the whole neighborhood just falls apart.
And then on top of that, you had blockbusting.
That was the predatory side of real estate. Agents would go into a white working-class neighborhood, maybe hire a black woman to walk a stroller down the street, and tell the white homeowners, the neighborhood is changing, property values are going to tank, sell your house to me right now.
They were selling pure fear.
And it worked. It caused what we call white flight. The agents bought the houses super cheap from panicked white families, and then they turned around and resold them at artificially inflated prices to minority families who had very limited options because of redlining.
It's just extraction of wealth. And the legacy of this spatial division is still visible. I mean, if you overlay a 1930s redlining map with a map of urban heat islands today, or a map of asthma rates,
they match almost perfectly. The redlined areas today have fewer trees, more concrete, hotter temperatures, and poorer health outcomes. The past is very much present in the geography.
Moving to the economic challenges today, we hear the word gentrification constantly.
Gentrification is incredibly complex. Essentially, it is the process of middle-class or wealthy people moving into a deteriorating lower-income neighborhood and renovating it.
On the surface, that sounds good, right? Better buildings, more businesses.
The pro side is urban renewal, sure. Private investment comes in, the tax base goes up, the streets get fixed, the crime rate might drop.
But the con is displacement.
Right. As the neighborhood gets nice, landlords raise rents, property taxes spike, The grandmother, who has lived there for 40 years on a fixed income, can no longer afford her home. The local mom-and-pop shop gets replaced by a high-end boutique or a $6 latte cafe.
So the original community effectively gets erased?
It's a huge loss of culture and social capital. The central challenge for planners right now is, how do you improve a neighborhood's infrastructure without pushing out the exact people who live there?
How does that contrast with urban renewal from the mid-20th century? They sound similar.
They're very different. Urban renewal was a government sledgehammer. The government would declare a neighborhood a slum, use eminent domain to legally seize it, bulldoze the whole thing, and build a highway or a massive civic center.
That's not gentrification, that's just destruction.
It destroyed communities instantly overnight. Gentrification is a slow economic displacement.
Looking globally, the challenge is different. In the periphery cities like Lagos, Sao Paulo, the problem is just speed.
Urbanization is happening so fast the government literally can't keep up. There is no formal housing to the migrants arriving every day, so they build their own.
Squatter settlements.
Favelas, busties, barrios, these are informal settlements. People scavenge tin, wood, whatever they can find to build shacks on the edge of the city.
With no water, no sewer, no electricity.
Usually none at all. And no legal tenure, meaning the government could bulldoze your house tomorrow because you don't own the land.
But for millions of people, it is the only option.
The challenge for those governments is, do you bulldoze them? Or do you try to upgrade them, bring in pipes and pave the footpaths?
Let's pivot to the environment. Cities are massive resource hogs.
They have a huge ecological footprint. A city like Tokyo requires a land area thousands of times its actual physical size just to provide its food, its water, and to absorb all its waste.
And they create their own weather, the urban heat island effect.
Right, because concrete, asphalt, and brick absorb the sun's heat all day and radiate it back out at night. A city can be 5 to 10 degrees hotter than the surrounding countryside. In a heat wave, that literal temperature difference kills people.
Especially in those red-line neighborhoods we talked about, the ones with no trees.
Exactly. Environmental injustice. Core and minority zones often host the stinky infrastructure too. The landfills, the water treatment plants.
So how do we fix it? What are the sustainability strategies they test on the AP?
We have a few key movements. First, smart growth and new urbanism.
Paint the picture of new urbanism.
Think of a return to the old European style of a town. It's highly walkable. It features mixed-use zoning.
So apartments over shops.
Right. You have front porches close to the street to encourage interaction. Garages are hidden in the back alley.
So you don't need to get in a car for every single gallon of milk.
Exactly. It reduces the carbon footprint and creates community.
Then there's the green belt.
London is very famous for this. It is a strict legal ring of open land around the city where building is forbidden. It physically forces the city to stop sprawling outward and start building upward or inward.
And brownfield remediation.
This is huge for the post-industrial Rust Belt. You take an old, toxic industrial site, like a steel mill or a polluted rail yard, a brownfield, you clean up the soil and you turn it into a park or commercial housing.
Like the High Line in New York City or the Belt Line in Atlanta.
Perfect examples. It turns a toxic scar on the city into a massive asset.
It sounds great. But there is a dark side to sustainability, isn't there? The economic trade-off.
There is always a trade-off. If you implement a green belt, you legally limit the supply of buildable land.
Supply and demand.
If you limit the supply of land, but millions of people still want to move to London, what happens to housing prices? They skyrocket. So sometimes the most sustainable cities inadvertently become the most unaffordable cities.
It can deepen inequality. The rich get the walkable, green, sustainable city center. The poor get pushed further and further out to the exurbs where they have to drive 2 hours to work.
That is the central paradox of modern urban planning. How do we be environmentally green and economically fair at the same time?
Wow, we have really decoded the landscape today. Let's bring it in for a landing.
Let's do a quick recap. We started with the origins. Site and situation dictate where a city starts and how it grows. We looked at the driver's transport, migration, policy.
We dissected the internal structure, the progression in America from rings to wedges to nodes, and the crucial differences in the Latin American, African, and Asian models.
We looked at the invisible city, the infrastructure and the data, both mathy and feely, that guides it.
And we faced the grim reality of the challenges: redlining, gentrification, and the environmental fight for the future.
For you listening and prepping for the exam, my final advice is this. Comparison is key. Compare the U.S. suburb to the European suburb. Compare the rank size rule to the primate city. And always, Always look for the why, the social or economic cause behind the map pattern.
And here's a final provocative thought to leave you with. We talked about central place theory, threshold and range. We talked about how cities exist to minimize distance for trade.
Right.
But in a world of remote work, where I can work for a London banking firm from a cabin in Montana, and a world of drone delivery, where the range of a good is basically infinite.
If the friction of geography is dead,
Does the city as we know it become obsolete? If we don't fundamentally need to cluster together for economics anymore, will we just spread out into one giant global suburb? Or will we cluster even tighter just for the human connection?
that is the trillion-dollar question. And the answer to that will define the geography of the 21st century.
Something to chew on. Thanks for diving deep with us today.
Until next time.